The views and opinions expressed on all radio shows broadcast on Tom's Radio Toronto are entirely those of the hosts, guests, and callers who are entirely responsible for all show content and do not in any way reflect the opinions of Tom's Radio Toronto or its staff. These broadcasts are presented and made public as entertainment and general information only, in the hope that they will be entertaining and informative to listeners. They are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or mitigate in any way any disease or condition, or to promote any specific lifestyle, belief, religion, political affiliation, or other personal practice, nor is the information presented necessarily accurate or verifiable.
Ha 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 ha. The Wisdom Show, hosted by yours truly, Bruce Gilbert, is aired now every Friday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. on Tom's Radio. That's the trademark of multiculturalism. We are located at 3768 Bathurst Street, room 308, North York or Toronto. Like and subscribe at worldwideweb.tomsradio.com. If you want to participate in our discussion, please call 416-900-5864. And we have a special show today, ladies and gentlemen. We normally seek the wisdom and depth of the book of Proverbs and are looking forward to make our life better and stronger and so on. We're continuing with that theme, but we're not using the book of Proverbs. My friend Kelp has invested 25 shows on his show on YouTube called The Lion of Poetry. And Kelp will enlighten us with a description and an understanding and encourage our appreciation of English poetry. I have nothing more to say, unless you want me to say, but I'll just hand it over.
Keep talking, it's fine.
Ken is the nicest guy I've ever met in my life, and look at the hat he gave me. And in appreciation, I gave Kelp an official Wisdom Show carnivorous butterwort plant. So there you have it. And I got the better end of the deal. So, ladies and gentlemen, the man with one name. Michelle, you want to tell us a little bit about your past?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. Bruce and I have been friends for 30 years. Not just friends. I was his boss for several
5 or 10 years.
At least 5 or 10 years. We both have spent a career in the financial services business. And I am semi-retired now and about to retire fully shortly. And one of the things I'm doing in my retirement is going back to a first love of mine, which is a love of poetry. And I've been doing a YouTube channel called The Lion of Poetry. The Lion, not the line, The Lion of Poetry. You can see there's 25 episodes that you're welcome to watch. Or you can also go and see my personal site. I have a poetry site with my original poetry. And the place to go there is The Lion of Poetry. Well, you're not going to see this, but thelionofpoetry.squarespace.com. Anyway.
Oh, maybe try it now. Just made it bigger.
We made it bigger?
Yeah, try it. That's a shocking improvement.
Well, thelionofpoetry.squarespace.com. That's going to take you to my original poetry. We're going to read a couple of my original poems today, but we're also going to read today poems from a variety of sources, and I would like to suggest that they are connected to the theme of your show, which is wisdom. In fact, I would say, Bruce, you still there? You awake?
I'm right here.
Okay. Every once in a while, just say hi. I would like to, this has probably been mentioned on other shows, and that is that King Solomon, or Melech Shlomo, as we say in Hebrew, wrote 3 books. And one of the books that Bruce has been focusing on is his, and they're all actually books of wisdom, but I guess the classic book of wisdom is the book of Proverbs that we've been focusing on. He also wrote a book later in his life, according to tradition, called the book of Ecclesiastes, which is more of a kind of a cynical wisdom, more of a, sort of a wisdom of an older man. But tradition says that as a young man, he wrote another book, which is called the Shir HaShirim, in Hebrew. It's called the Song of Songs. The Song of Songs. And it is a book of poetry. It's a book of poetry between a man and a woman, but the lovers are meant to, according to tradition, are meant to represent the relationship between God and his people, the children of Israel. So we're not going to talk about that today, the Song of Songs, but I do think that there's a connection between poetry and religion, for sure. And certainly, I mean, we see many instances of that in the Bible, in the Torah, the Song of the Sea, the Shirat Hayam, that was when the sea was split. We have many. In fact, I would say like this. I would say that if you wanted to rate as a leader and as someone who was to be listened to in this Jewish tradition, you would write a book. You would write some kind of book that would have poetry in it. King David wrote the Psalms. King Solomon, as we said, wrote the Song of Songs. Moses wrote the last part of the Bible, the Old Testament, the Parsha of Ha'azinu, which is it's all about it's a poem. It's a poem that Moses writes. So basically, and of course all the prophets also wrote poetry.
I'd like to add, I'd like to add a lot of the phrases we've come across in the book of Proverbs, like he speaks lips of truth. The Hebrew Svat Emet is a title of a book someone in the last 150 years wrote. And aside from his name, we refer to him by his book and the Chafetz Chaim. It's a tradition of authors are known, they refer to the title of the book rather than their name when they're referring to them. So it's a more modern addition to the tradition.
Okay. Great. So, Bruce?
Yes, sir.
You think that this is about me? You think it's about the Lion of Poetry? The Lion of Poetry? Oh, there it is. At squarespace.com. Thanks. But this is about you, Bruce. This is about you. I want...
Thank you.
If you can actually, while I'm talking, actually focus the camera on Bruce. Not literally. I'm just joking. I'm just saying figuratively. Yeah. But because what I want... This is a man who I'm trying to... I know that poetry is not a big thing in Bruce's life.
I'm a heathen.
I wouldn't say heathen, but it's just unenlightened, yeah.
Stop nodding.
and that's probably true of most people. Most people would say, poetry, schmoetry. Like, well, I can't relate to it. It's not for me. It's not, I can't understand it, etc. So what I hope to do in this episode, and if you like this, if you like what we're doing, then please go to my YouTube channel, because that's what we do. That's what I try to do, is I want to turn people on to poetry. And Bruce Gilboard.
I have been turned on to poetry, and I mean that in the most serious way. I've been turned on to poetry from a little exposure to Kelp's program, and I look forward. And several things. I knew a puzzle piece. For example, the Brownings. I didn't know it was a couple. I thought it was two people. Then there's a famous English poet, Browning. Turns out there's a husband Browning and a wife Browning, and they were both poets. I had no idea.
So, but Bruce is. I told Bruce if I'm gonna do this show with you, you should watch a couple of episodes of The Lion of Poetry, and that's what he's referring to. He learned a little bit. He's a little bit turned on already.
The haikus turned me on more than I thought. They were just lying, cheap, gimmicky things. Now I see the relationship to Pirkei Avot I won't translate it, and I see what you referenced to Twitter, and I see that haikus done in a proper way have value, and they're all valuable. They're all valuable. In fact, I thought we should have a PDF system set up to our show site, and you should also have a PDF system set up so that people can bang on the key and get copies of stuff.
Well, this is going to be the first of many shows, so with us together, because their letters are going to come in. People, they don't do letters anymore.
Do you hear them banging?
Social media is going to be. They're banging
at the door. They're banging. Let me in.
Let's get into this. So basically, what I want to do is I want to read some poems. We're going to start off with really easy poems.
Yes, sir.
Easy schmeezy, and I want to see your reaction. I want to see how you. I want to hear your reaction.
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, we'll start. We're going to start with something easy. The first poem I'm going to read to you today is by a poet called Ogden Nash.
Yes.
Ogden Nash lived from 1902
Yeah.
to 1971. And he is, face the camera, not Bruce. Okay, that was a little direction there. Yeah, so
We don't do edits
but I'm
like
looking
some
for, I'm
shows.
looking for your reaction, though. So I need
Look
to see.
there.
Oh, look at the camera. Okay, got it. So Ogden Nash was known for his humorous poetry, and if I read some of his poems, you probably know them. But the first one I'm going to read, you may or may not know. It's a short poem. It's a traditional poem because it rhymes. So there's a rhyme, and you'll see it's got some wisdom in it. There's some basic wisdom here that we can all as people who are married would be able to benefit from. It's called A Word to Husbands.
Louis, you have to leave the room now.
A Word to Husbands. Ogden Nash. To keep your marriage brimming with love in the loving cup, whenever you're wrong, admit it. Whenever you're right, shut up.
You can stop there.
Let's get your reaction. Put the camera on Bruce.
I'm I'm shaking with fear of the truth, the overwhelming truth of. I can't even speak. The overwhelming truth of that cup that you just poured. Oh, yeah, it's basic 101 stuff.
Anything else you want to say about that? Is that a poem you can relate to? Is that,
Sure. And I fear there's a little bit of fear of truth. I've been doing something wrong all along, then I hear it in a nice sentence. Marriage advice, every guy.
Okay, so what is the truth of that poem? What can you summarize?
There's a phrase, a phrase something like, want to get your wife angry, tell her to calm down. It works that way, right? So that reminds me of. I don't have enough sayings built into my soul to make my wife as happy as she could be. I don't have enough. It's my lacking. It's not related to her. I mean, I'm happy to collect these little chunks of wisdom and employ them. Do I get a gold star now?
Audience, who's better? Who's better, Bruce Gilboard or Howard Stern? That's my question. Because I think the guy has the kind of a Howard. Okay, so good.
Stern has better guests than I have. Calm down. Calm down.
Not yet on Howard Stern.
Okay.
Okay. So that was the first poem, and again, pretty easy idea. Basically, as Bruce has summarized, your wife is always right. That's what I was looking for. Okay.
What's that phrase? Happy wife, happy life.
Happy wife, happy life. Good.
Yeah,
Yes, this is Proverbs. These are Proverbs, right? This is what I'm saying. It's poetry, but it's Proverbs. Second poem I'm going to share with you is very similar. It's a kind of a short poem. It's a word of advice, and the poet is again. I guess it's hard to see with the lighting here, but the poet is Langston Hughes. Langston Hughes, similar time frame to Ogden Nash, lived from 1901 to 1967. The reason I'm telling you that when they lived is so that you get a context of
where did they live?
So Ogden Nash, both were Americans. Langston Hughes, who we're talking about now, was lived in New York. He was part of what was called the Harlem Renaissance, which was a really important movement in African American culture in the U.S. Including poetry, fashion, dance, music, all aspects of culture. I do a whole episode on Langston Hughes, and he certainly was quite an influential poet in his time. The poem I'm going to read you is one of his short poems. Again, it rhymes. So we're going to get to, the reason I keep saying it rhymes is because one time I asked Bruce, what do you think about poetry? This goes back several months ago.
Yeah.
And he said, well, poetry has to rhyme. It has to rhyme. I said, it doesn't have to rhyme. There's lots of poetry that doesn't rhyme. And we're going to get to it. We're going to talk about why poetry doesn't have to rhyme, although these poems do rhyme. So here's
your definition of the word poetry was different than my definition of the word poetry.
What's your definition?
No, mine was that it has to rhyme. It was just a definition of the word.
Okay. Langston Hughes, advice. Folks, I'm telling you, birthing is hard and dying is mean. So get yourself a little lovin' in between. What's your reaction to that one?
It's sweet. It's sweet and it's it's a little shameful. There's a little tinge of guilty. But that's sweet.
You like that one? Okay.
It's gritty.
Can you summarize that one? Or it's already summarized?
I think it's something like live life to the fullest, even though there's a lot of hardship.
Very good.
Like, yeah.
Very good. Yeah, I think that's definitely it. Yeah, the best you can do is try to enjoy it. Yeah, and live life to the fullest. Good. I like that. All right. Nice piece of wisdom. Nice little.
Louis is good for something.
Louis is the man. Louis is going to be turned on to poetry. Okay, let's move on. Next poem. We haven't rehearsed this at all. I obviously can see that.
I'm waiting for the haikus.
And this is very different from the what I do. When I do the line of poetry, I do like 10 or 12 different takes and edit it and I spend hours and hours editing. This is a very different exercise. I didn't think actually that I could do this because I was used to the other. But let's continue. So the point is I don't know how much. I don't have a sense of time how that's going, but I have a list of poems.
Seriously, we'll have a break at 2:20 and 2:40.
I hear.
How long
is the break?
No, 3 minutes.
Okay. But anyway, so I have a list of poems. We'll see what we get through. I'd like to get through the whole list because some of the poems, we're not going to get to haiku today, by the way. But there is an episode.
He wants to be invited back.
A Lion of Poetry episode on haiku. Haiku. And you'll learn a lot about haiku because, in fact, one of the mission statements of the Lion of Poetry YouTube channel is to really get people in tune, not just to poetry, but to other cultures, other languages. And of course, haiku, the origin is Japanese. Anyway, let's continue. The next poet is a little bit further back in history. An interesting poet. Again, we don't have the time to really go into all of his life, but he was a bizarre guy. He was an artist. He was a kind of a religious figure. Anyway, he lived from 1757 until 1827, and this is a poem, one of his poems. It's called A Poison Tree. And again, I want you to close your eyes, focus on the words, focus on the images, and tell me what your reaction is. This one's not so funny.
It's a little threatening. The title's threatening.
Poison Tree. The title is. Okay. A Poison Tree, William Blake. I was angry with my friend. I told my wrath did end. I was angry with my foe. I told it not. My wrath did grow. I watered it in fears, night and morning with my tears, and I sunned it with smiles and with soft, deceitful wiles. And it grew both day and night, till it bore an apple bright. And my foe beheld it shine, and he knew that it was mine. And into my garden stole, when the night had veiled the pole. In the morning, glad I see my foe outstretched beneath the tree.
Wow. It's sweet, bittersweet.
What's your reaction? Can you summarize it's a little difficult, little more difficult language, right?
Yeah. And every syllable is an illustration.
Mm-hmm. But summarize what happened there. Can you summarize what's the plot?
A person in the guise of a tree is comparing someone he likes to someone he doesn't like, and the encounter with them. The one he doesn't like, he kills, and the one he likes, he I don't know if he seduces or he's happy with. I also, respecting our medium, I need to see the words. I need to see it a couple times.
Okay, and then on my YouTube channel you see the words. The words are there. Yeah. But okay, Louis, and do you have any?
Let's try. So I think the tree's anger. So because the first time, the first line is him being able to release his anger.
Good.
That it didn't grow. And then the second time, because he kept it in, it kept growing and growing until it became, I guess, vengeance.
Perfect.
And he doesn't even know it happened in the end until he saw the death.
Terrific. Yeah, and I think there's a psychological truth here. Is that if you're angry with someone, if you don't want to bear grudges, you don't want to have resentment, you want to particularly if it's somebody that is your foe, so to speak. You know, that you want to make sure that you can, because otherwise, in the end, there's a pretty sad ending to this, a very tragic ending.
Why you use a tree as a metaphor?
Yeah. It's a good question, but a good point that you noticed that it's a metaphor.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's part of poetry. Poetry is you could have said, I got angry and you know, and then I, you know,
a folk song would have said, here's a story about an angry man, and rhymed it with gun or something.
Possibly, yeah, possibly.
So because the tree is like, let's go with the plant, like your plants, like you nurture it and you take care of it, right? What's happening here is like, it's like the darker side. It's like because you're adding more into it because of you're not releasing it, so it keeps growing and growing, which is what the tree is.
There's an innocence of the tree.
Yeah, I guess.
That's the exception here. That's maybe the drama, that clash of the innocence of the tree. If you would have said it about a frog, a dog you can imagine be angry. You can't imagine a tree being angry and vengeful. That's the interesting style
Well,
here.
you know, the tree is not angry, but it's the, you know, what the tree is an
tree is a
expression.
foe.
The tree is an expression of his feelings. Like it's what grows from his feelings, right? That's the idea.
The tree grows from his feelings?
I think that's the idea. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the poison. His poison that he has, his anger, expresses itself through the fruit that is on the tree, and then, you know, his foe eats that fruit.
Okay.
Right. So that's the idea. But it is a little bit more complex. We're moving up. Okay, you can imagine where we're going with it. But it's a very very striking poem, very memorable. You know, you may not forget that one. Right. Okay.
Forget what?
How are we doing? Are we going for a break?
Oh yeah, you know, all this talk of poetry, if the products and services we share with our viewers had poetry in their pitch, they would be more appreciated products and services. So let's just watch some of these. Let's intently watch these commercials and see where poetry would help them sell their product.
Our company is committed to providing truthful, honest, competent, and result-oriented service through advising and representing our clients in Canada and overseas in a wide range of immigration matters. We focus on providing support, building dependable relationships, and promoting success. We are dedicated to understanding what results you want and to helping you understand what actions we can take on your behalf.
Simple lang kumita kahit nasa bahay ka lang. Gamit ang iyong Show My King online franchise business. Step 1, you post. Step 2, we deliver. Step 3, you earn. Tandaan, sa Show My King lang yan.
We are back with the second segment of the Wisdom Show. Tell your friends, hit subscribe, hit like, hit anything else you can, but don't hit Kelp because we need him to give us more poetry.
And don't give me any poison apples either. Okay, let's move on because we want to cover as many poems as we can and get different reactions and keep turning on Bruce. So Bruce, this one's going to be a little more difficult. The next poet is William Wordsworth. lived from 1770 to 1850. He was considered the poet laureate of England in his time, and he was a revolutionary poet. I do a whole episode on William Wordsworth, which I recommend on the Lion of Poetry YouTube channel. But let's read this one. This is a poem that we don't cover on the channel, but I think it's related to wisdom. Okay, so the thesis I have on this is that what this poem is trying to tell you, and you can tell me afterwards if it comes through, the best way to find wisdom. Okay, and it might be different.
No, it would be the second best way to find wisdom. We're
We'll see.
already quite aware,
Okay,
Mr.
so
Kelp.
he's saying the best, and it may be different from what you think.
Okay,
so let's go.
let's go.
So it's called, and you can see from the title, or the title is called "The Tables Turned." The Tables Turned. Okay, so again, you have to concentrate a little bit on the words because this is like 17th, 18th century language of English. But let's stay with me. Okay. Up, up, my friend, and clear your looks. Why all this toil and trouble? Up, up, my friend, and quit your books, or surely you'll grow double. The sun above the mountain's head, a freshening luster mellow, through all the long green fields has spread his first sweet evening yellow. Books, 'tis a dull and endless strife. Come hear the woodland linnet. How sweet his music, on my life, there's more of wisdom in it. And hark, how blithe the throstle sings. He is no mean preacher. Come forth into the light of things. Let nature be your teacher. She has a world of ready wealth, our minds and hearts to bless. Spontaneous wisdom breathed by health. Turn truth breathed by cheerfulness. One impulse from a vernal wood may teach you more of man, of moral evil and of good, than all the sages can. Sweet is the lore which nature brings. Our meddling intellect misshapes the beauteous form of things. We murder to dissect. Enough of science and art. Close up these barren leaves. Come forth and bring with you a heart that watches and receives.
Interesting.
What do you think of that one?
He's articulating a line that I don't hold with. He's articulating a line that says, "Don't go to books. Don't go to other people's experiences. Go to how you feel. It's in your heart and breathing and so on, and nature." And it's a namby to me, a namby-pamby, love is glorious, tree hugger. This is the tree hugger anthem.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah. No, it is. So I as pretty. There's another comment. He uses a lot of words I don't know. I would say there was about 10 words. He used not veneral. He used a word for
Vernal.
I don't know vernal.
Yeah. So is that his fault or your fault?
Very good, very good.
In other
well,
words,
it's from another era, and that's not in my lexicon. And I respect the vocabulary, but I think the point is, and I think there's a little bit of sarcasm. That's what I think. I don't think a man of words is saying throw down books. But you want to say a walk in the woods is good for you? I've said this on the show many times. My approach to divinity and to spirituality is that it's through agriculture. And when I pick up a rock and see those creepy things in my garden, that's divinity to me. I'm seeing nature in the creepiness. And I think that's what he's describing. But he's going a step further. He's almost saying, in your feelings. It's a little bit of glorifying the airhead, in my humble opinion. You know, does that make sense? Am I consistent with what I'm saying?
I think it's judgmental, but
for sure. I'm judging the poem.
You're being judged.
I'm judging the poem. Yeah.
But that's your prerogative, and I if you don't relate to this one as much as, let's say, the marriage poem.
No, I would read another one of his poems in a second.
Okay.
But the question was, what do I think of? The question is, what's my judgment on it? That's the question.
I hear.
Okay.
Louis.
Robin is not Batman.
I think it's very. I kind of agree with Bruce with like how I view the whole thing, but I'm not like I guess I'm not. How do I say it? I view it the same way as Bruce, but maybe you could dig deep more into it as more of like the difference of being with other people or like your experiences and just being on your own, because if you're reading a book, basically it's just you and a book, or like a sage. Normally those are people that is like a hermit is like someone who's always alone on their own for, this is say like hundreds of years or something like that.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between just your own minds and being able to like bounce off with everything around you, not just the nature, I guess. I think it's one more thing that it's talking about.
I like that. If you read more Wordsworth, have you read any Wordsworth?
No.
Okay. If you read more of him, you'll see that he talks about being alone with nature, just like you might say being alone with a book. But he also talks about experiencing nature with other people and how that deepens the experience, which you can't necessarily do with a book, right?
Okay.
But I've been thinking a lot about Wordsworth. I'm thinking a lot, as I think we all are, about the environment these days. I mean, the climate change and all the things that are going on, and these guys, Wordsworth and Blake a little bit as well, were part of a movement called the Romantic movement in England. And not romantic like lovey-dovey romantic, like love romantic. It had to do with a rebellion against the industrialization that was going on in England at that time, and it was a return to nature. People were rediscovering nature and the how important nature is, and how it was how we were encroaching on nature. And this really, I think, resonates with today as well. I mean, with our current.
He's praising nature.
He's praising nature. He's saying that the truth should come from nature, not from your books. That's what he's saying. But he's also did you say praising?
He's praising nature.
Praising nature.
He's elevating it.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's...
What do we say after each poem? Thank you?
They do a snap.
We snap?
Okay.
Then we should applaud.
I'm gonna read another poem by another poet called Mary Oliver. So we haven't experienced any female poets, any women poetry, women who write poetry, poetesses or whatever. So this is the first of a women poet. It might be the only one that I've done today. Mary Oliver just died a couple of years ago in 2019. She was born in 1935, and she's famous for nature poetry. So she is a more modern proponent of poetry of nature.
And where did she dwell?
American. So we were just dealing so far with Americans. Wordsworth and Blake were British, but Mary Oliver is an American poet.
I noticed in your show, aside from Japan, they're all American or British.
Well, because it's English. It's our language. Unfortunately, Okay. So there's a couple of poems by Mary Oliver. I mean, there's many poems that we could read of hers, and I couldn't decide which one, but I think I'm going to go with this one here. It's called "The Summer Day." And it's also, I think, asking some crucial questions, and it's related to nature. And I think a little easier, the language is easier. So here we go, The Summer Day. And by the way, this is the first poem that doesn't rhyme. So we're going to see.
I don't think we can let him say it.
Yeah. So this is, we call this free verse. So she's not worried about rhyme. She's not worried about the rhythm of the poetry. We saw sort of a rhythm to many of the poems that we've seen already. But I think you'll see that what makes this poetry is there's some, there's ideas here, there's feelings here that she wants to relate. So let's see if they come across to you, if this resonates with you guys. The Summer Day. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? What's your reaction to that?
Needs more rhyme. That's what I'm telling you. It's. I feel like I've been ripped off. That she went into a bathroom stall, read the graffiti. It didn't rhyme either, and she slapped it together. And it's nice. It's not. I wrote notes. Animals, insect, flies away, grass, stroll. One wild and precious life. I get it. It's sweet. It's cute. I get it. But unless you have that rhythmic rhyme thing, I feel like I'm eating fake food. It's fake nutrition. It's fake poetry. I'm prejudiced against poems that don't rhyme.
So what you're saying is that you get nothing from this? Like you don't.
I get less.
Because it
So what
doesn't
do you
rhyme.
get?
Pardon me.
So what did you get from it?
It's lovely imagery, and if there was a picture or a painting of a lovely woman in a flowing dress, and she's in a field, she's got the grasshopper in her hand, he's eating sugar. For some weird reason, his jaw goes side to side, not up and down, which I don't care about. And it's a lovely image, but it doesn't do. It's not worth. It's respectfully a lesser value ink and paper she's using than if she were to sprinkle some rhyme on it, I would appreciate it more.
Feel the same way, Louis?
It was hard for me to find, because you always have to find the metaphor in it, and I guess it was hard for me to pick it up. But I guess it's more of like the difference of like watching something, I guess, and thinking about yourself and like not comparing. It's hard for me to see the whole picture of it.
Okay, so you didn't. This one didn't do as much for either of you.
Yeah.
I think Louis, did we say thumbs down?
Yeah, so it's
it was
interesting because
good. It was
she's a best-selling poet. Like it's not often that you see poets that actually do well, like in terms of sales of the books.
I did like it. I just couldn't like pick it up.
Yeah. Here, so listen. The one line that I think is important in this poem, they're all important, but she says, "I do know how to pay attention." What she's doing in this poem, and what makes it a poem, is that she's paying attention to details that are, so that we can see that grasshopper. I mean, could you not see that grasshopper?
Yeah, I appreciate the imagery
in her hand, right? You can see.
Yeah.
So that means that she was successful in what she was trying to do.
Okay, fine. She painted an image. Okay, fine.
Okay, I'm going to now.
If you had said, "This isn't poetry, this is imagery," I'm all for it.
Well,
It's all poetry.
Yeah. So
I know. I have a prejudice on the words.
Yeah, so I'm asking you to, overcome your prejudices. But
This is
but
rough.
We're working on it.
I don't know if I'm starting to get jitters.
We're working on it. We're working on it. Okay, I'm going to move on now to a poem by me, by Kelp.
Oh.
Okay,
Yeah.
so an original poem, and it's in a similar line. It is free verse, my friend.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll try and read this quickly. We have a commercial coming soon. It's called The Squirrel and the Apple. This is by Kelp, by me.
It's already way better than the previous one.
Okay, no judgments here, no judgment. Okay, walking briskly on a chilly day in fall along the suburban tree-lined street where people rarely walk, I stopped to watch a squirrel struggle with an apple, bruised but whole, discarded or perhaps dropped by someone from a passing car. The fruit was almost the size of the animal. A prize, an unexpected find. I watched him try to hold it in his mouth and transport it up the tree where he could store it for colder days he knew were coming. But the apple was too much for him, too heavy and too big. His head flopped comically from side to side, flopping right then left, then right, then left, as he climbed the tree without falling or dropping the apple. But drop it did when he was partway up, and then down he came to retrieve it. Again, and again, and again, and again, he grasped the apple in his mouth. The weight made his head flop back and forth. His claws held tight to the bark as he slowly ascended with flopping head. He lost his grip yet one more time as the apple fell to the ground rolling. I marveled at his persistence and at his inability to learn from all his failed attempts, until a passing cyclist made him want to cross the street, leaving the apple behind. As I walked home, smiling, noticing now that all the trees were raining leaves, I thought of all the times that I have done the same thing over and over again, comically or tragically, hoping to achieve what I could not.
That's the greatest poem I've ever heard in my life. I think particularly the flopping head, it's changed me.
But Bruce,
Yeah.
there was no rhyme in it. And you
What?
liked it.
There wasn't? I could have sworn I heard rhyming through the whole thing.
No rhyming in that one.
Okay, if
Yeah.
the difference between this poem and and Mary's and Mary Oliver's poem, if you would have said you wrote Mary, if you would have switched the author, I wouldn't have known the difference. So it's the same. It's the same description of nature. And in my backyard, we have an enormous apple tree,
Yeah.
and a high yield. And I see, the squirrels in my backyard. They have names. So I see gray, and I see brown, and I see black, and I see red. They're all going after those apples and bobbing their heads and all. You know, and I'm fascinated with. I held with it, but
No, I know.
alas, there was no rhyme in on Tom's radio that day.
I know that you're a lover of nature. I know that. So, anyways, do we have to go to a break, or is it?
Yeah, let's see. You know, like I said, I need a rhyme. Commercials are good. Watch the commercial. You should. Okay, let's go.
Our company is committed to providing truthful, honest, competent, and result-oriented service through advising and representing our clients in Canada and overseas in a wide range of immigration matters. We focus on providing support, building dependable relationships, and promoting success. We are dedicated to understanding what results you want and to helping you understand what actions we can take on your behalf.
Simple lang kumita kahit nasa bahay ka lang gamit ang iyong Show My King online franchise business. Step 1, you post. Step 2, we deliver. Step 3, you earn. Tandaan, sa Show My King lang yan.
Okay, there once was a squirrel from Toronto who said, "Get on with the show pronto." Ladies and gentlemen, Kelp and poetry.
So, Louis, did you want to say something about the poem? You had some comments during the commercial break.
Like the
Did
first,
you want to challenge Bruce?
the first half, I was thinking, why an apple? Instead of like, because normally I always see it as like them going for nuts. I was like, so why an apple? It's like way bigger than them, I guess, or like which I was pointed out in the poem. And then
It may be a local geographic thing. There may be more apple trees.
I think they'll eat anything. I think squirrels will eat anything. Yeah.
They're not the gourmet squirrels.
So I'm going to read you a couple more free verse poems because I want you to.
I'm gonna kill myself.
I want to expand your mind because what's important here is that you get the images, right, and you get or there's a lesson. Like I think there was a wisdom in this poem that I wrote. Like there's some realization that the poet has. After watching it. By the way, that really happened to me. I watched this squirrel with this apple going back and forth. But what made it a poem, besides the description of it, was coming up with some realization from this, some lesson, some wisdom, if you will. Yeah.
You were saying?
Okay. So in regard to these realizations, I'd like to read now a poem by a poet, Carl Shapiro. Carl Shapiro lived from 1913 to 2000. American poet, American Jewish poet.
Yeah. You can tell by the name Carl.
Yeah, Carl Shapiro. Yeah, and by last name as well. And this I think is a very moving poem. I think. But again, I'd like to see your reactions and see if it moves you in the same way that it moves me. It's free verse. The poem is called "There's One." There's one. In the village of board sidewalks, striped awnings, Saturday's horses, and the red clay river south of Petersburg, Grandpa presides in his dry goods store. Uncle Harry, about 14, is selling shoes. Mother, behind the notions counter, is only a girl. Grandpa, in a dark serge and beard, is thumping and measuring bolts of cloth on the table. A farmer in bib overalls with 2 young children, a girl and a boy, come into the cloth-smelling store. The farmer stops and points to Grandpa in his dark serge and beard and says to the children, "There's one." Then to my mother, who is only a girl, "There's one," he says.
It's beautiful. You know what strikes me personally? You'll find it important. Have you ever heard of Port Perry, Ontario? Sure. You ever heard of Port Perry along Highway 7? Mm-hmm. My grandfather had a dry goods store. And his wife, my grandmother, she died when the kids, my father and my aunts, were between the ages of about 6 and about 14. But I never imagined they probably worked in the dry goods store pointing out the bolts of cotton and this and that. And so it hits me personally. So
okay, what else could you get from this besides the personal?
It's a lovely historical picture. It's like, what's his name? The American painter. You know who I'm thinking of.
I know who you're
thinking. It did all the covers of the magazines.
Norman Rockwell.
It's like a Rockwell paint. That's a Rockwell poem.
Okay, but there's a point here. What is she saying?
I didn't get the point.
Okay, you're going to get in a second. When the farmer says one. There's one, what does it mean?
I got lost there.
You don't know either?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. There's a Jew.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What makes you say that?
Because this is his family, an immigrant family, working in a dry goods store in sort of the boonies, like you say, Port Perry.
Oh, that's exactly my family.
Yeah, and the farmer is trying to teach his son and daughter, that's a Jew, and that could have said this is some of the other ethnic type, whatever, but it's a poem about prejudice. The man who was prejudiced, yeah.
You want to hear
against the free verse, yeah.
So it's remarkable that my brothers and cousins would be impressed with this. Years and years ago, I had a situation on a cassette tape recorder, interview 2 of my 3 aunts after my father passed away. and they all knew how to say where does it hurt in a half a dozen languages. Why? Because my grandfather Alec Gilbord knew a half a dozen languages of the, I'll say, peasant farmers in and around. And when someone had to see a doctor, he would translate at court and with a doctor. People would come to the house porch and say to the, and if he wasn't there, they'd say to the kids, you know, and the kids learned to say in these half a dozen languages, where does it hurt? And that's how they determined the seriousness of it. The other thing along with that, the way payment was made, they would wake up in the morning and see a bushel of apples on the porch. That was payment for translation services. This really, you don't know how much this hits home and provides an illustration for my personal storybooks that I grew up with.
Right here.
It's hitting me.
Yeah, no, I mean, and sometimes that's with poetry. You know, sometimes you need to read it a couple times. You need to get the explanation. You need to hear the criticism of it and what people say about it to really get it. You know, that's part of what the Lion of Poetry YouTube channel does. It helps you to understand the poetry. Poetry is not always easy, right? But
that's a very interesting comment. It's not. We see in the Book of Proverbs we're digging.
Yeah.
Similar with the poetry.
But the reason why I picked this poem, aside from the fact that it's moving for me, is that I think it relates again to your theme of wisdom, because the poet himself must have witnessed this as a child.
Yeah, sure. Right? Oh, for sure.
And that was where the poet realized that, you know, Jews are different. These other farmers are different from the Jew, you know, his Jewish family, right? He realized he was different, right? There was a realization there of being different, and that is a serious topic, you know, for poetry, right? The realization, and it's a serious topic for wisdom. I mean, like
it's the human condition.
It is the human condition. When we realize we're different from everyone else, it's a striking moment for us, right?
It's also how can I put it? I don't want to say could it be interpreted as it's a joyful thing? There's a Jew, he's a good guy. Could it be, or it's not in the words? Am I pushing it? Am I forcing it in?
I don't think so. I think it's an anti-Semitic. It's an anti-Semitic thing. Yeah. So, but and it's powerful because of that. It's not blatantly, and they're not saying, you know, let's kill him or let's do, but they're saying there's one, like, you know. It's drawing a line between people, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what's powerful about that poem.
Can I change from the show to tell you another story about Port Perry? My aunt told, so the mother, I'm the youngest of all my cousins. So 30. I'm the youngest of about 20 or 30 people. So at any rate, I heard from my aunt that when their mother died, and she was about 6. And when she would walk home from school as a 6-year-old in Port Perry, the other mothers in the town would be on the phone. She's in front of my house. She's in front of my, and she later learned they were all making sure she was safe walking home from school. Isn't that a lovely thought? Shay.
Very nice. I'm glad to to bring out these sentimental.
She said it's not that she lost one mother. She was raised by 100 mothers. Yeah, that's the title.
Cool.
Haiku that. Okay. No rhyme that.
Let's move on. And I'm realizing now that if we're going to finish this in 3 o'clock, then I have to sort of cut some of the poems. So I'd like to actually read, if it's okay with you guys, to read another one of my own poems. It's the last free verse that we'll read.
Okay, remember, praise him, okay?
Yeah. Okay. And actually, on my YouTube channel, I don't read any of my own poems. You can find my own poems on the Squarespace at the bottom there. Those are where you'll find my own poems, where I read them, and there's a picture there, etc. There's an audio as well. But anyway, this is a poem I wrote recently, and I'm interested to hear your reaction to it. It's free verse. This is the last free verse for today. But I think you can see that there's some value to free verse. It may not be your favorite, right? You know, it's like, sometimes, you like vanilla ice cream. It's okay. And, it's not chocolate. You love chocolate. But vanilla's not bad either, right? So that's what okay.
I'm lost in an imagery again.
Here's a poem called Cargo. Cargo. Okay, this is by Kelp, by me. They're called cargo pants. I think.
Okay, so it's funny already, right? So,
All right, let me start again. Okay. They're called cargo pants, I think, because of all the pockets. Besides the standard pockets on the sides and the back pockets in the back, there are 4 more pockets on each side. 2 with zippers, 2 with flaps over the top, and Velcro on the inside of the flaps. That's a lot of pockets. You can carry a lot of things in those cargo pants. Makes me think of cargo trucks and cargo ships carrying lots of cargo by the ton. How much tonnage on this cargo ship? I hear someone shouting from the dock as the ship scrapes noisily against the embankment. Ships, like people, have different roles, different jobs, different responsibilities. Ships like the cargo ship are laden down with cargo, moving goods from one place to another, so crucial to commerce and the logistics of commerce. The aircraft carrier, like in the game called Battleship, 5 pegs long, moves aircraft, helicopters and planes from one location to another, so crucial to success in war and the logistics of war. Ships, like people. Some ships seem to have it easier. Luxury liners, cruise ships. Some people's lives are like that. Cruising, schmoozing. Some people's lives are like skiffs, like rafts, like lifeboats. Like Huck Finn and Jim floating on the Mississippi, Jim with the pole in his hand guiding the raft down the river. Some people sail, some row, some paddle, some drift. Some are powered by an engine. And then there are tugboats, which push or pull other boats and ships. There's some people like that too. But all of this is just a digression, a clever digression, because something bad happened to my cargo pants. Something very bad. I left a pen in one of the pockets.
oh no!
The pocket on the left side with the Velcro. And when the pants went into the laundry machine, the ink from the pen leaked out onto the pants and also onto some of the other clothes in the washing machine, like my favorite green polo shirt, which now has streaks of blue. What a mess, you said. Another mess I got you into. Another fine mess. But you felt bad for me because you knew I loved those pants and the green polo shirt and the other clothes that were now streaked and spotted with blue ink. Also a tablecloth, one of your favorites,
No, not the tablecloth!
was rendered unusable. Not to mention the pen, which had to be thrown out. The shiny blue ink stains on the pants were frightening to look at, unnatural, like the faces of wounded animals. Mr. Rorschach, where are you now when I need you? We soaked the clothes in rubbing alcohol, which is what Google suggested. We washed them again, but the ink held fast. I took them to the dry cleaners to see if they could do anything. Those pants are a write-off, the guy at the dry cleaner said. He didn't realize he was being literal. Or maybe you should have said right on. Those pants are a right on. But none of this is funny. You're an idiot, I say to myself. You're stupid and careless. What kind of person does such things? Makes such a mess? Causes so much damage and waste? Yes, I had checked the pockets, I had emptied out the tissues, but I didn't reach deep enough to find the pen. And now I'm thinking back to the ships. Oil tankers and oil spills. The Exxon Valdez. All the damage and destruction. Turning everything black like black ink across the surface of the ocean. The birds with shiny black oil on their feathers unable to fly. Such a mess. It doesn't matter if it was an accident or on purpose. It might not have been anybody's fault. Maybe it was just somebody's carelessness. Doesn't matter. The damage is done.
I think that's it's a very funny piece. I think it's very funny.
It is.
Did you get any serious message from it, or?
Well, once when I was a child, I lost a sock in the washing machine. I cried for 3 days. There's a companion poem to it. It's very sweet and cute, and but it doesn't rhyme, Ken. so I give it thumbs up.
There was so much to it, though.
It's very funny.
There's so many levels of like metaphor to it. I was like, at first, I was like, so which one is the pants? Like, which kind of person is the pants? And then it changes to ships, and then at the end, it changes to Earth itself, of like how you're destroying. Yeah, the pants became. I thought the pants was talking about the person, like how you would just one mistake could destroy other, and then the other clothes are the other people, but then it changed again to Earth, I guess.
It's the COVID-19 of laundry. Should have washed a mask in there.
And how we're destroying it with the oil spill that happened and like the other stuff. So I guess it becomes what do you call I forgot the term.
Great. All right, great. You got it. You right on. Do you have time for one more, or we're done?
Let's do one more.
Okay. So let me finish with something. It looks like you like funny and you like rhyme. So we'll finish with something funny and rhyme.
We like torturing squirrels and laundry, you know.
And this is, I was going to, I had other things here, but we had to skip them. Had some Shakespeare, but we'll finish with this. The poet is Ernest Lawrence Thayer, lived from 1863 to 1940. The reason I brought this into our wisdom channel is that part of wisdom is knowledge, right? Is knowing things. I would say knowledge. Knowledge is a quantifiable thing. Like how much knowledge do you have? Wisdom might be a qualitative thing.
That's fair.
Yeah, quantity versus quality.
Yeah.
But one thing you need to know.
We've actually spent a fair amount of time on that.
You've talked about that before.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
So one thing you should know is where we're at now, and we just one of the things that's happened in the news, if you're following the news, is the World Series just finished of baseball, just this week. And I thought I'd read you. You probably know this poem. Hopefully you know it. It's a famous poem. If you don't, I think you might like it.
Is there a guy named Casey in it?
There's a guy named Casey.
This is one of my favorite poems.
One of your favorite poems. I didn't know that.
This one rhymes.
And this one rhymes. So it's called Casey at the Bat. It's a poem about baseball. The outlook wasn't brilliant for the Mudville Nine that day. The score stood 4-2 with but one inning more to play. And then when Cooney died at first and Barrows did the same, a pall-like silence fell upon the patrons of the game. A straggling few got up to go in deep despair. The rest clung to the hope which springs eternal in the human breast. They thought, if only Casey could get a whack at that, we'd put up even money now with Casey at the bat. But Flynn preceded Casey, as did also Jimmy Blake, and the former was a Lulu, while the latter was a cake. So upon the stricken multitude, grim melancholy sat, for there seemed but little chance of Casey getting to the bat. But Flynn let drive a single, to the wonderment of all, and Blake, the much despised, tore the cover off the ball. And when the dust had lifted, and men saw what had occurred, there was Jimmy safe at second, and Flynn a hugging third. Then from 5,000 throats and more there rose a lusty yell. It rumbled through the valley, it rattled in the dell. It pounded on the mountain and recoiled upon the flat. For Casey, mighty Casey, was advancing to the bat. There was ease in Casey's manner as he stepped into his place. There was pride in Casey's bearing, and a smile lit Casey's face. And when, responding to the cheers, he lightly doffed his hat, no stranger in the crowd could doubt 'twas Casey at the bat. 10,000 eyes were on him as he rubbed his hands with dirt. 5,000 tongues applauded when he wiped them on his shirt. Then while the writhing pitcher ground the ball into his hip, defiance flashed in Casey's eye. A sneer curled Casey's lip. And now the leather-covered sphere came hurtling through the air, and Casey stood a-watching it in haughty grandeur there. Close by the sturdy batsman, the ball unheeded sped. "That ain't my style," said Casey. "Strike one," the umpire said. From the benches, black with people, there went up a muffled roar, like the beating of the storm waves on a stern and distant shore. "Kill him! Kill the umpire!" shouted someone in the stand. And it's likely they'd have killed him had not Casey raised his hand. With a smile of Christian charity, great Casey's visage shone. He stilled the rising tumult. He bade the game go on. He signaled to the pitcher, and once more the dun sphere flew. But Casey still ignored it, and the umpire said, "Strike two." "Fraud!" cried the maddened thousands, and echo answered fraud. But one scornful look from Casey, and the audience was awed. They saw his face grow stern and cold. They saw his muscles strain, and they knew that Casey wouldn't let that ball go by again. The sneer is gone from Casey's lip. His teeth are clenched in hate. He pounds with cruel violence his bat upon the plate. And now the pitcher holds the ball. And now he lets it go. And now the air is shattered by the force of Casey's blow. Oh, somewhere in this favored land, the sun is shining bright. The band is playing somewhere, and somewhere hearts are light. And somewhere men are laughing, and somewhere children shout. But there is no joy in Mudville. Mighty Casey has struck out.
Greatest poem ever written. Right? Are you familiar with that, Lou?
No, but the whole thing, I was like, I just can't wait till he strikes out.
Okay, I think we striked, what's the opposite? We
hit a home run.
We hit a home run. Kelp, fantastic guest. We, in all sincerity, we do hope you'll return and enlighten us more. I am an enlightened man, despite my prejudice against rhyming, against poems that don't rhyme, and squirrels, and washing machines, and cargo pants, and all that. Okay, I'm not sure. The schedule is switching with us for daylight savings time, and I started a computer course on Sunday, so everything's a little tricky for the next couple of weeks until I figure it out. And Kelp, if that's your real name, thank you for coming. Louis, thank you for coming. Owen, thank you for coming. Ladies and gentlemen, have Shabbat Shalom. Hey,
Thank you to
that's
everybody.
it.
Yeah.
Well
Thanks,
done.
Chris.
Well done.
All right.
This has been